Coming to you from UBN Studios in Burbank, California. You are listening to the Unsugarcoated podcast with your host, Aalia.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Unsugarcoated with Aalia. I am so happy to be here. It's 2021. I know we technically, with the last episode, we're already in 2021, but we're so far, it's same thing, different day currently, but I am excited to be here for another week and I'll bring you another incredible episode. In producing this show, I look to share events and experiences that provide for various perspectives on important issues. We are not here trying to construct a narrative that fits our ideas. Rather, I'm here to listen, discuss, and learn more. I have moments where things a guest say create a better understanding for myself as well as empathy, and I love when I'm able to do that for more people in the audience. We've spoken on topics such as survivors of sexual assault, police brutality, Black Lives Matter, human trafficking, mental health, LGBTQ. The list goes on, and we will continue to do that. In an effort to admit the issues we need to address, ask the questions that ultimately lead to solutions, inspiring others to adjust their behavior so that we can be better for ourselves, our families, and especially our communities. Immigration is a big topic in this country. My family at certain times over history have been migrating all over the world. I have ancestors and family lines that come from several regions, the Americas, Europe, Mediterranean, and Asia. Some of them were on the move thousands of years ago, some a couple hundred, and some within the last century. While I am a person who can say the words, my family immigrated to the United States legally, I'm also aware that at different times in our history, that process has been made easy enough to where you could calmly enter this country by walking over a bridge in Laredo, Texas, or riding a boat into Ellis Island. Have you guys, can you imagine what it was like in the early parts of the Americas? Rolling in, you see the big Statue of Liberty, this welcoming sense. You stand in line, you put your name in a book, you go through a process, and then voila. You are now part of the American dream, right? So I don't know where this happened. I do know that it's been for a minute, but at one point in time, I will say this before I say that. At one point in time, when this country was building itself, people who didn't belong here were welcome because they were the ones who would do the work that other people didn't want to. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, immigrants do get the job done. And now it's very different. People are demonizing and villainizing families who desire to create a better life for themselves and their families. And the immigration system has forced people to come here and live undocumented. And I know some people may not like or agree with me on that, but that is the truth. For young people who were brought as children who know nothing other than this place is home, a lifeline was thrown out in 2012. Since 2012, more than 825,000 people who came to this country at a young age years ago may be able to take advantage of deferred action for childhood arrivals, also known as DACA. And the protection from the deportation and work permits that the initiative brings has actually given a lot of people hope. And you know what happened? Those undocumented immigrants lined up to be part of it. Over the nearly 8 years since DACA began, recipients have been able to go back to school, get better and better paying jobs, buy houses and cars, and start businesses, creating jobs and economic prosperity for all Americans. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, more than 200,000 DACA recipients worked on the front lines and continue to work on the front lines of the response, serving their communities and the health of this nation. For today's conversation, I've invited a very inspiring young woman to have this conversation with me, and it is an honor to not only share my personal experiences with undocumented immigrants, but hers as well, in an effort to humanize the struggle that is real for so many. Sharet Garcia is a proud first-gen professional born in Oaxaca, Mexico, who immigrated to the U.S. when she was 10 years old. Sharet had lived in the U.S. as an undocumented person for 27 years until DACA. With tenacity and family support despite the challenges of navigating both educational and career systems that were not intended for individuals like her. Sharet was able to earn her associate's, bachelor's, and master's degree and is currently a doctoral candidate. Sharet would have not been able to achieve her goals without the support of her family, who always believed in her and instilled the importance of hard work and encouraged her to never lose hope and be proud of her culture. Her hardships have made her stronger and eager to help others. In 2019, that led to her founding UndocuProfessionals, a platform she created to empower and build the community by providing a safe space for undocumented students transitioning to undocumented professionals to share their experiences, networking, collaborating, supporting, and hosting a variety of workshops and more. In this role, she shares her expertise and supports other undocumented students in their efforts to obtain legal status in America. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my guest, Ms. Sharet Garcia. Thank you so much for joining us today, Sharet. It's a pleasure to have you. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm very, very excited to have this conversation. I tell you the truth because it is something I'm quite passionate about. For our audience, first of all, I know you to be a wife and a mother. You live here in Southern California. Can you tell me a bit about your personal, immigration story and, kind of what it was like growing up as an undocumented person?
Well, first again, thank you so much for having me. It's always, very, I want to say, I just really it's hard to continue talking sometimes about our stories, but at the same time, we know it's very, very important to talk about our stories so people can understand what really is our experiences being undocumented. I've been in this country since the age of 9 years old. I came with my single mother at that time, and it was just basically three people. It was my mother and somebody else, which is her family member, and myself, that came to this country. And my mother is an indigenous woman. She's from Oaxaca. She barely knew how to speak Spanish because that wasn't even her first language. Her native language is Zapoteco, which is an indigenous language from Oaxaca. So we came to the United States because my mother made the decision that she wanted to give me something that she never had, which was an education and a better life. My mother only finished the 3rd grade in Oaxaca, which I still can't believe that, my mother, if you see her and you know her, you would think like she had a higher level education because she really has tried her best to educate herself. But she wanted to give me something that she never had. And I felt since that age when I came to this country that at a very young age that education was going to be definitely very important in my life.
When you say that, it really resonates with me in general because we tend to see, or I don't want to say we as in I necessarily, but I always say we so that people know I'm very inclusive. I'm not trying to point fingers at somebody's ideology or make them feel poorly for it. But, education was very big in my family. Actually, as an American thing, growing up, getting a college education, there are a lot of people that I know that were for the first time ever going to college from their family, even if they were born on American soil. And so when you say that, it just causes me to think about why, why people wouldn't relate to that, why they wouldn't understand that, because I think it is very natural, even if you do well, to want to give your kids more, to want to give your kids an opportunity. And I think that historically, as human populations, we've always done that, right? We've been migrating all over this earth for a very long time. Talk to me about coming here. So do you remember the trip out of curiosity? I mean, do you remember what that journey was like?
Yeah, I can tell you that I don't have very good memory. In general, I feel like I'm always one of those people that have to write things down because in order to make sure that I'm reminding myself of certain things. But that event, I will never, never forget because it's a very traumatic event in my life that I can still pretty much recall everything from that experience. It was a very It was not it's not it's almost like you're reliving your nightmare, right?
Right.
Like because I came to this country and not knowing really what I was doing. I just was following my mom, who she told me we were gonna, move to a new place, but I never thought it was gonna be a new country, coming from Mexico and now migrating to this new place that I had no idea what we were doing, but I was just doing everything that my mom would tell me to do. So I can tell you I remember everything about that experience and crossing the border of Mexico to the United States.
You heard me, I think, part of my monologue, but there was a time when people could, from Mexico, just walk over the bridge very calmly and come into this country. Your experience was not like that. You didn't
No,
realize it, right? But I mean, I'm sure it was, like you said, it was a nightmare. And I think that people don't understand that. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's very hard for me. And I don't even know if it's just caring about other people, but I know that I've seen certain films or I've seen certain shorts where they reenact. I think about, and I know I'm not the one who's really, I shouldn't say I'm not the one because I care about people. I think it hurts me. I put it intentionally in my last book about how children going on that journey and how children often die as a result of just the attempt to come to this country. I have a hard time understanding why people want to demonize that process personally, just as a parent. So, I mean, forgive me, but my heart goes out to you when I hear that, because it's just knowing what I've learned. Like, I've done ancestry. I've gone back to the documents of my family and I've seen the things like how I'm like, wait, they just like walked up in this country. That was it. Oh, well, that must have been nice, right? Like, okay. Why do we villainize that now? Let's move a little bit forward. So, and like you said, a child. So, I mean, did you even understand as a child what that meant, a different country? I mean, you were just going to this new place. Did that even like register this is a new country until you were a little bit older?
Well, we pretty much, when we finally crossed the border, that was totally like just a whole like big experience right there, just crossing the border, because we tried multiple times to cross the border in this way, that in these different ways that my mom was pretty much telling me what to do. And I knew that, I would follow my mom wherever she would go. Like she was the only person I pretty much had, and I would follow her. And I knew that what she wanted for me was something better, or for us, for the family, was something better. And I can tell you, to fast forward that as soon as I came to the first time I ever saw United States, I saw these beautiful lights. We were on top of a mountain, who knows where, because I don't remember exactly where because I was only 9 years old. But I remember seeing the lights of the United States, like all the city lights of of Los Angeles, I guess it was at that time. I think that's what it was. And or I think maybe San Diego or something like that. But I guess what I'm trying to say, when the first time I saw those lights of the city, I was mesmerized. It was beautiful. I was like, wow. Like, I knew right away we were somewhere else. It was not in our own small hometown in Oaxaca, where we don't have a lot of electricity, and we don't have big buildings. So I knew right away that we were somewhere new and different, right when I first, saw the city.
People have this presumption that you come here and you make it over the border, and then suddenly you're like taking advantage of the system and you're getting free food, you're getting free healthcare, and life is fantastic. As a person who's experienced that, can you share with me, not just yourself, but, based on, your community, what are some of the things that people struggle with as an undocumented immigrant growing up in this country? School, jobs, education?
Well, I saw it right away with my mother as a child, starting school in a new country. Right away, I saw it with her. I saw the way that we were living. We were not living in very good conditions. I remember living in a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment with over 12 people in it. That were not like healthy living conditions to be in. And I knew that my mom was working very hard, but she didn't have a lot of opportunities in this country. One, because she didn't know the language, which was English, and also because she was undocumented. So I saw the struggles of my mom, who was the original dreamers, is what we call them, because they're the ones that really went even, like I went through my own struggles being undocumented, but I was equipped, with the English being something that I learned at a young age, so that way I can use it later on. But my mother didn't, right? She started working right away to be able to have food, have a roof over our heads, and she also was a single mom. So she pretty much had a lot on her hands, to do for me, and it was hard. It was hard to see her work, and I never saw her giving up. I always saw her that she always kept going. She always worked very hard. But no, she's the one that pretty much was she's pretty much my hero, the person my role model that I looked up to all the time, because she came to this country not knowing anything, not having not even $20 in her pocket, and she was able to manage to have a job and to provide for us, for the family.
I was a person who didn't get to go to college straight out of high school because I had to take care of myself. I didn't have parents. I was homeless at 14 years old. And I talk about having to pay my rent, and I had to live. So I didn't have the luxury. And I know that there were some people who could do, but I was holding not one or two jobs. I would have I would have 3 jobs. So I can understand. But I want to talk about some statistics because, on the national level, speaking to what people say, what life is truly like for an immigrant, or people having this conception that they don't contribute. You're taking advantage. You're taking from our system. You're taking from our benefits, but you are not contributing. So I want to speak to that because many have started families. 254,000 U.S.-born children have at least one parent who holds DACA status. In total, 1.5 million people live with a DACA recipient. So that just kind of speaks to how many kids, their own parent, they're here if they are deported or whatnot. Because DACA started, so you have 30-year-olds, right? There you have a certain age, but there are people who have families. But speaking to the financial, according to CAP's analysis, DACA recipients and their households pay $5.6 billion in federal taxes and $3.1 billion in state and local taxes each year. That money comes on top of the contributions that DACA recipients make to the health of the Social Security and Medicare funds through their payroll tax contributions. After taxes, DACA recipients and their households have a combined $24 billion in spending power to put back into their communities. Additionally, DACA recipients own 56,000 homes, making an annual $566.9 million in mortgage payments. Other DACA recipients pay $2.3 billion in rental payments each year. Now, for some of you that you're going to be like, Aalia, you're spitting off a lot of numbers to us, but let me just have you pay attention to those billion-dollar numbers because those are important. You can't come here, you can't go into a store and buy something and not contribute to the taxes of this society. There's no way to avoid it 100%, even if you think that these people are not filing taxes or paying taxes. But that's actually a misnomer, correct? Because there are a lot of people who are not documented, but they file taxes because they have a T number, correct? And that's been going on for years. So what DACA did for people like yourself was it allowed for you to come forward. So any undocumented person I knew, and I shared, and there's actually a project we're working on that we're very excited because as a business owner, I have employed people in our previous business that I owned. We did employ undocumented people. It wasn't intentional. It was just, we had job applicants and a lot of them did not have legal status. We needed people who were bilingual because being bilingual and being able to speak more than one language is a beautiful freaking thing, by the way. But and most of our stores were in more Latinx communities. So we needed representatives. And it just so happened those were the people who showed up for the jobs, a lot of times. And they were willing to spin a sign on the corner or clean the bathrooms or start wiping windows. They did what they needed to do to have a job. That's what I saw. That was my observation. You're dealing with a lot of people who throw this information out. So I'm established that there's this financial contribution. How does it make you feel when a lot of people's, objection to DACA recipients getting status, of which everybody lined up, a lot of, there were so many, once you were able to, once that status became available to you, where you knew you could go get a legal status and be here in this country, how did that make you feel? And what was your process like?
Yeah. Yes, Aalia. So as soon as I went from being undocumented, fully undocumented, living in this country for over 20 years to finally getting for the first time the opportunity to be a DACA recipient. As you all know, being a DACA recipient is you have to go through all these different, requirements and meet all these requirements to be able to become a DACA recipient. So I am only one of over 800,000 DACA recipients out there that had this, this privilege now of finally getting a work permit and no longer needing an ITIN number. We could use it if we want to, but now we have a social security number, which is a temporary work permit that we have. And DACA is only able to be renewed every 2 years. So we always have to apply to renew every 2 years. And when this opportunity finally came to me in my life, honestly, it was something that it just changed my life in so many different ways. And one of the ways that it really helped me is that I was finally able to use the degrees that I have worked so many years for. I came to this country and immediately went into elementary school and then went on and finished high school in honors. And after that, unfortunately, because I was undocumented then, I was unable to pay for a 4-year university, even though I did get accepted to a lot of 4-year universities because I was a very good student back then. I was like an honors student and I was accepted to several good schools. And one of them was actually my number one school that I really wanted to go to. But I decided to be realistic with my life being undocumented. I knew that I had to pay for my education. And I knew that 4-year university was not going to be an option at that time for me. It wasn't a realistic option for me, at least. And I decided to go to a community college instead because it was all I could pay and what I could afford. So I decided to go to my nearest community college, which was in Santa Monica because I am from LA, and decided to transfer from there. I paid everything. I transferred to UC Santa Barbara. After I transferred to UC Santa Barbara, I went into getting my master's at Loyola Marymount University, which is a private school that I really wanted to go into. So I decided to pay for it. I paid all of it out of pocket. And when I finished my master's program, I was out of debt. Like I had no loans to pay, nothing. I paid it all by myself. And when DACA came into my life, when I finally was getting this privilege, I decided to pursue my career job, which is what I've been working for so many years, and went into applying to community colleges because that's where I really wanted to go because I'm a product of a community college. So I wanted to help those that were in community college. So I decided to become a counselor. And now I am currently a counselor at community colleges in San Diego area. And I'm also a assistant professor. So I teach counseling courses to students. And I specifically help and focus on undocumented students, first generation students, POC, people of color, and all these minority students that we sometimes don't get that. Sometimes we just don't understand that group of students. At least in colleges and universities, there's no really representation of us out there. because I was there. I was a student. I wish I could have met someone that was also undocumented or knew something about being about how it is to navigate all these different institutions being undocumented. So I really wanted to do that, and that's what I did. And that's how DACA and all these different privileges started to change my life and continue to change it, because I'm currently, because of DACA, I'm able to continue working in this field.
So a couple things. Thank you. I mean, and bravo to you, by the way, because I love Loyola. I think it's amazing. You in community college. This is not something that, again, once again, for an American family, you have a lot of people who cannot go straight off to four-year college because of the financial situation. Not every parent is a one percenter, for goodness sakes. And yes, education has gotten so extremely important. I mean, expensive. Excuse me. Not, and so I can only imagine, because you mentioned that a lot of people don't realize when you do come here, you get the undocumented status, but you still have to pay, and you have to pay full price for books, full price for that education. So, you definitely had to take the more economical route, but you probably still spent a good amount of money on your education. And I think that it's amazing that you did it, and I love that you have got through that. But two things. And I have to ask this question. Do you not, so DACA has a limit on how many applications they will accept, right? Like, there's a reason it's only 800,000. It's not like they opened up DACA and said, okay, everybody who wants to become a DACA recipient, go ahead. There's a cap, correct?
Actually, at this time, we don't know that there is actually a cap. It hasn't really been confirmed. It's everybody that is eligible. They made the requirements very specific, because they do want to limit how many people can apply. But as of now that we know, we don't see that there's a limitation of how many DACA applicants can apply. It's just that the requirements make it very hard for a lot of us to apply.
Right, which leads to my second. And I will say, I know that there's a cap on immigration applications, asylum, and things like that. So, and that's more the new coming in, and that's been around for a while. I mean, there have been changes through the immigration long before even the Trump administration. It's been a very hot button topic in our country. But when I mean, in my mind, I feel like everybody who would apply, who could apply rather, would, but there has to also be a level of fear, because once you do that, once you go from being undocumented, like, I liken it to my driver's license a little bit, right? Before I got my driver's license, I used to drive around and I wouldn't really worry if I saw a cop. If I wasn't even I was driving before I got a driver's license, is what I'm trying to say. I was like a 15-year-old kid driving. And if I saw a cop, I wouldn't freak out, because I'm like, what's he going to do? Just tell me not to drive? I'm already driving, right? Kind of, a little bit. So a little bit of no fear. But then the day I got my license, I remember I saw a cop and I freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, now I have something you can take from me. And I can't imagine what it's like to be an undocumented immigrant. I do know what it's like to drive on a suspended license and worry what might happen if I make a wrong turn and get pulled over. I mean, this is innocently, I was in my 20s and I let a ticket expire. It just can escalate. Anybody who has driven on an expired or suspended license for those reasons knows what I'm talking about. But the fear, like if I got pulled over, the anxiety, the shaking, at what point in your life did you know that if you were in jeopardy? And did it cause fear for you living? And when you went to present yourself for DACA, did suddenly going on the radar present its own set of anxiety for you and your family?
Yeah, definitely came to my mind so many times. I was always a little bit kind of, oh, let me see, like, let me see what happens. Kind of like these people that kind of already applied to, and then I might apply. There was a lot of hesitation. There's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of fear, like you said, but you know what, sometimes, it was just something that we think a lot all the time. I mean, this comes as being undocumented. We're so, unfortunately, always living in fear, because everything we do, can be something that can now the police can stop us, or, my family wouldn't go ever to San Diego because they're too scared to be pulled over and be seen, as not tourists, or I don't know. There's all this fear going on. It's just something that is in our daily lives, unfortunately, that is just something that we constantly have to think about. And one of them, applying to DACA, was definitely one of the things that was happening to me. I was also we don't trust people right away. That's something that I still think is part of because of my immigration, because I'm undocumented. I never have really, it takes time for me to trust someone
Right.
because of that. So I think that trusting that this DACA was gonna actually, this DACA program was actually there to really help us. It took a while for a lot of us in the community, including myself. I actually applied almost 2 years after the DACA program came into place. One, because the reason was I was thinking about it too much. I was a little scared. But at the same time, the second reason was because somebody gave me the wrong information about the
Right,
DACA
right.
program,
That's what I was going to
which
say.
which is, I think, something that happens a lot in the community. People take advantage of us and they want to give us um, wrong information. Maybe they don't even know that they're giving us wrong information. But this person that told me that I did not qualify for DACA was an immigration attorney or lawyer. He told me that I did not qualify because of the requirements, that I didn't meet the requirements. So I didn't send out my application. And not until I met someone in my master's program who worked at a law firm. He was just an assistant in this law firm, and he reviewed DACA applications for this law firm. And he told me, after I told him, hey, I don't qualify for DACA, after seeing him in several of my classes, we kind of got, to know a little bit each other. And that's when I told him that I was undocumented. And he told me that he wanted to review my documents because he thought that I did qualify based on my birthday and things like that. And I did. We met outside of school, and he reviewed my information. He said, no, I think you do qualify. Let me send you the information. Let's apply. It's better that you apply than not apply. And because of that information, that he really put the time and effort to look at my application, he was part of the community. He is also a first-gen son of immigrants. So I felt pretty like he really wanted to help me. So I went ahead and did it. And because of him, I was able to apply for that DACA program. Otherwise, I wouldn't have probably have applied if it wouldn't be for this person. So I guess it's all about this misinformation that continues to be out there.
Well, and it's what inspired you partly to start with UndocuProfessionals, correct? Because I know in our conversation, you said that was one of the things. You almost missed out on this opportunity, and now you've gone and created support for others so that they don't go through the same thing. If you can, I'm actually going to read this, so UndocuProfessionals, you are quoted, "We believe undocumented professionals should have a clear pathway to achieving their career goals. We aim to do this by creating an environment of mentorship and community that is sustainable and allows future generations to live out their potential." That's amazing. Tell me some of the programs that have come out of your efforts and what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so it's amazing. I feel very fortunate that the community responded very well to this platform. It's only been around for a year and a few months. So it's very exciting to see how many wanted to really help and support and be part of this community, which is the UndocuProfessionals. And we're doing a lot of amazing things, but one of the few that we've been working a lot on is the mentorship program, where for the first time, there's a nationwide mentorship program where we've been helping over 250 students that are being connected now with an UndocuProfessional, because we understand, this is something that happened to me personally, and it happens to a lot of in our community, is that we don't have mentors. Sometimes we're too scared to say that we are undocumented to anyone in the institutions that we're in, because we don't know how they're going to react to that. We don't know if they're going to close doors to us, and we don't want that. We didn't want that. We're too scared. And this happened to me all the time in all those different institutions that I went to, that I didn't want to tell anybody that I wasn't documented. So because of that, I probably missed a lot in all these different opportunities of, having a mentor, having someone that supported me, helped me. Instead, I felt very lonely in my journey because of that. and felt that I was doing everything by myself, which I was, because nobody was really helping me. I mean, paying my education with my out of pocket money. It was just something that I was doing for me. Nobody else was helping me. I was just working multiple jobs while going to school to do that for myself. And I don't want anybody else to go through that. I don't want somebody else to feel like they're alone, to feel that nobody else is out there to support them. So that's what we created, this mentorship program in which we can connect students that are undocumented in whatever level they're in. Some are high school students all the way to master level students, to connect with another professional that is either in the field or is already started in the field or about to start in their field, to connect with them and have someone that even just to share their stories sometimes is very beneficial, or there's just so much that they're gaining from the mentorship program.
Right.
But that's the goal. And then also we are currently doing a lot of professional and personal development workshops in which they are all being facilitated by UndocuProfessionals. So this is coming directly from the community. The other thing we did is we had over 600 registered attendees to the first UndocuProfessionals virtual conference, in which we had over 6 career pathways of the different careers out there. Some were STEM, some were entrepreneurship, business, health, and education. Those were some of the ones that we had, where we had career panels, and we invited over 30 guests that came and shared a little bit about their experience navigating the education and now professional role in their field. So just that's just some of the many things that we're doing. And this is, again, thanks to the community, because this is all being led by UndocuProfessionals or undocumented students, undocumented community members.
That's incredible. I'm sure it brings, I know what you're talking about when you say you don't share your status. I mean, having worked with people that I know, I need your social security card, and you get that look of like, and I mean, nobody goes around. I remember owning stores in, our stores were like in Linwood, Compton, Southgate. And I remember that there'd be times when like La Inmigración would be out, sales would be down. We could actually tell because our sales would be down, because you could tell the fear in the community. And I want to talk about something, because I think as part of that, there is a term that I'm not really a fan of, and I do want to bring it up on this show, and I'm going to use this opportunity. Illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
Can we talk about why that is just not a thing? Can we why, when you hear that term, what do you think?
Well, first, unfortunately, I've been called illegal immigrant so many times, and it's so unfortunate. I've been called so many different names. This is just all to dehumanize us. This is all being used to pretty much make us feel as, we're not humans. Like it's a derogatory word. And I always keep, now with this platform with UndocuProfessionals, I've been attacked a few times, and they keep calling illegal immigrants. And the reason is, we need to educate the people. We need to educate people and to let them know why this is a derogatory word, and why is this word so dehumanizing and inappropriate, and it should not be something that you refer to with with someone that is undocumented.
Yeah, to another human being, because it's not illegal to immigrate. It is not. Like, that is, for someone who's listening who's like, well, I don't understand. If they didn't come here legally, how are they not legal? How does that not make them illegal? But I beg of anybody to understand, again, going back to our own histories, that like literally, and because you have 4 grandparents and 8 great grandparents, and let's take the numbers on from there and there, there's always someone in your family that left some place to go to another place. Like, I have German roots, and it's funny because in my last book, not funny, but in my last book, Jugend, which was a multicultural fiction really hitting on stereotyping and racism, but it was focused on in 1937. So it was definitely had a lot of Nazi, talked about the Holocaust and what 1937. So technically before the Holocaust, but when people started fleeing Germany to get away from the Nazis, you had countries that would turn them away. People know. And so I never understood how you could turn your back to someone, especially children who were just looking for a better situation or even just a different life. Like if I wake up tomorrow and decide, you know what, I want to retire in freaking France. That's not a bad thing. Nobody would look at me like, oh my God, you're crazy. Are you serious? I mean, if I just wanted to go to a different place, we are allowed to do that as people. So I want people to understand where I'm coming from when I say that, because illegal is not the right word. Undocumented, you haven't gone through the process, and I think I challenge people to go understand why it is very difficult to get legal immigration status in this country. So when you started becoming an advocate, and I do, when you talk about I can only imagine another set of fear. So you've had this life where you've been in fear of something and coming and finding out you're undocumented and probably trying to deport you, what that would mean. Now you've got DACA. You could just turn your little butt around and go on and live your life, but you're not. You're helping your community. You're standing up for others. You're helping them find their voice. You're empowering them, and you are in turn empowering yourself. Does that both? And when you say you're scared, I can imagine it would make you a very easy target for somebody who has negative ideology on it. But the positive of it, the positive that has helped you. Have you found strength in your journey in becoming an advocate for others? Does that help your own voice become stronger?
Yes, I think my community is the only reason why I continue my education today. I'm currently a doctoral student, or doctoral candidate student, and I'm in my dissertation phase at this time. And the only reason I even went into my doctoral program is for my community, is to help, because there's just very little research done in the undocumented communities in any area. The one that I'm currently working on is the area in creating a better understanding of how can undocumented students go from being a student and transition to a professional, and how can they make decisions on the different career opportunities out there, which we currently is very not really, this information is not known, or it's misunderstood, or people, there's counselors, teachers that keep telling undocumented students that they're not able to pursue a career of their choice just because of their undocumented status. And in some areas, honestly, it is much more challenging for someone that is undocumented to just say, oh, okay, I'm going to go into the legal career. And now because of your status, that could be a problem depending on the state that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there's a lot of misinformation. And then because of that misinformation, there's a lot of people in this very important roles like counseling, teachers, etc., administrators in all these different school systems that are providing wrong information and not encouraging the undocumented community to pursue a career choice that they want to pursue.
Right.
And because of that, that happens to a lot of us. I was told that I couldn't go into my master's program. Like, what are you going to do with this master's program? You don't have a social security number. You're not going to be able to work in that particular field. So why would you continue? You're just going to waste your money. You're going to spend your money on something you're not going to be able to use. But I decided to pursue it regardless, because I knew that there was going to be a way somewhere, somehow. There was going to be a way where I would be able to use my degree, whether as an independent contractor, whether it would be as later maybe changing my status to, a residence, in this country, whatever it may be. I was like, I'm just going to continue because, one thing I've learned is that time is really, you can either use it wisely or kind of like, you're going to just regret it later. And I didn't want to have any regrets. So I went ahead and pursued my master's program, even though I had no idea what I was going to do after. I had no idea how I was going to find a job. I had no idea what was going to be for my life in 2-3 years after I graduated. And I went for it because I knew that education was one of the big pieces, important pieces in my life that I wanted to pursue. And I did that. And I'm so glad I did that, because that's when I finished my master's program, that's when DACA came in, like a
Mm-hmm.
year after I finished my DACA, I'm
Okay.
sorry, my master's program. So I guess that's why I felt there's a need to continue educating, to continue motivating and empowering our communities. And whatever I know and the resources I know, I'm sharing with those that are coming after me, because I knew I was navigating all these different institutions by myself, and that others didn't know how to help me. Maybe they didn't mean to give me wrong information. It's just what they knew.
Right.
And that's the reason why, I could have just left after my bachelor's program and not continue my education. And right now, my life would be a little bit different, and I'm just glad that I pursued what I really wanted to, which was education. That's really where my heart was at. I really wanted to help the next
Sure.
generation, the next students, and that's why I continued this route, this professional
Yeah,
route.
it sounds like you held on to hope, which is very, very important no matter what, and I'm glad that you did. Two quick questions, because one, I think that when you speak to that, where there are limiting, people don't often want to acknowledge people of color, or minorities, excuse me, whether undocumented is a segment of people who are often systemically held down, because like you said, you're encouraged to go get the trade job. So how can you become the doctor and the lawyer if you're told, hey, you can't do that? It limits you systemically. And 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 every person that I know, whether they're from Mexico, the Middle East, China, there's a lot of immigrants that I know that, because of the opportunity, they grew, they became successful. I don't know many people that want to stay down. But if the system is keeping you down, unfortunately, that's where you end up staying, and you have to fight that much harder. It's not that everyone has to fight for things. I mean, nobody is given a free pass on anything. And I think that people don't understand that if you happen to be undocumented, man, those challengers are actually much, much harder. You got to do it in
Yeah.
the alleys and the back doors and under the table. And it's a very difficult life to lead and grow success when you're doing that. But I'm so proud of you for doing what you did and holding on to that. Last two questions. We have to go really quick. What would you like to see from the community in support of DACA? And then just quickly, what would you like to see DACA potential, or your community, more from them, as far as signing up for these things and taking the time to come out and be part of it?
Yes. Well, I keep saying I post out at DocuProfessional as my own healing journey, as well as I'm writing this post is something that I'm also sharing because I'm experiencing it. I experienced it in somewhere around my journey. And one of the things that I've been saying is that DACA is not enough. DACA is DACA is the floor for us. We want to reach the ceiling, right? And DACA is just definitely not enough. For those that don't know, DACA continues to be, it continues to be in peril, which means that we don't know what's going to happen with DACA, because it is a temporary program. Somebody can come and take it away again, which keeps happening. I don't know how many more times DACA has to win to make it so people can understand that this program is really helping a lot of individuals, not like myself, but there's just a lot out there that are really making a big difference. It's not just one person doing this. It's so many undocumented professionals out there doing so many things. We're essential workers. We're paying our taxes. We're everything. We're doctors. We're engineers. It's just so many in our that are undocumented doing so much with this program. And it's not enough. Even DACA we don't know what's going to happen to it. There's actually a hearing happening in the middle of this month in January that again is trying to attack DACA, which again, if it happens, it's going to affect everyone that has DACA. So we keep doing this. It keeps happening we just won, a few months ago, and now again, it's in peril, and we don't know what's going to happen. So my goal with this platform is to also to not only educate, but also to keep reminding everyone that DACA is just not enough for us. We really do need a path to citizenship. I've been waiting in line. I mean, I wish somebody could tell me what other way I could do it. I've been in this country for over 20 years, and I've been waiting in line for over 20 years.
Right.
I have a 13-year-old son, that is, he sees that he knows that I'm undocumented. He knows that whatever happens to me affects the whole family. If I can't work, it's going to affect my family, and so on. This is a ripple effect, right? Where it affects everyone in some way or another. So we just need something better. We need DACA is not really the solution to our problems.
Right. I totally agree. And you know what? Thank you so much for all that you're doing, because it really, really does matter. I love the example that you're setting, the passion for your community. I would encourage more people to support it, find out, understand it. And for people like myself, I want to stand in arms, arm to arm, and celebrate and say, you deserve this. You do deserve this. One last quick question. Where do you call home, Sharet?
For me, home is really everywhere. Like home is here right now with my kids. And I really want to, I want people to remember that undocumented immigrants that come to this country, they really want this country to be better than what it is. We really want to contribute. We want to put our part. There's a lot of undocumented immigrants that go into the Navy, go into the military to help this country. We are Americans. We are no different than other people. The only difference is that we were not born here.
Right.
But other than that, our heart is here. Our heart is here. And I want to continue staying here now for my kids. And because everything that I've been working on has been done here. Mm-hmm. And, just like everybody else, I'm paying my taxes.
Yes.
And I'm doing everything that all Americans
that we're all doing.
Would do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Just for the listening audience, UndocuProfessionals is where they can connect with you, support you, or even learn more about your organization.
Yes.
Thank
you. Please support us. Follow us on Instagram. We're in social media. We have a private Facebook group, and you can find us on our website, which is www.undocuprofessionals.net.
Awesome. I thank you so much. Thank you, Sharet. We hope to see you again, and I will be checking back in with you later on.
Thank you so much, Aalia. Take care.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. For everyone else at home, thank you so much. I hope you've actually learned something, heard this, and I hope it's touched you. And we will see you next week. In the meantime, thank you so much for letting us be Unsugarcoated. Bye.